Hey everybody, Coach here. Hey, Happy New Year, I guess. We're starting to get away from that January 1st thing, but I thought I'd throw it in there anyway. The landscape probability here at Brook and Pond right now, as I look out the slider window into a sea of white, is sitting at probably about -5 out of a +10. Yeah, we got about 20-mile-an-hour winds, blowing snow, etc. And I was kind of wondering what the heck is going on in your guys' world. I was thinking many of you just got through with Winter Storm Blair that cut this country in half and left behind quite a wake. As a matter of fact, my friends Roger and Jolinda out in Kansas said that they had over 17 inches of snow and an 1/8 inch of ice on the roads. Oh my gosh. I thought I had it bad. No, they're digging out right now. Hey, this week we are talking about lawnless landscapes and how you can kind of break that weekly maintenance cycle if that is something that you're trying to wean yourself away from. With the busy lives and high water costs and the maintenance time, all of these issues factor into some people's reasons why they just throw their hands up in the air and say enough is enough, and they kind of give up on the yard. Maybe you have a neighbor that's done that, and eventually, they have that house on the block. This week, I'll walk you through going lawnless from a new yard being installed or an existing yard makeover. So let's get started and discuss lawnless landscapes. Hey, welcome back. Hey, right out of the rip, right out of the gate, many people will never, and I know I'm talking to some of you guys out there, never separate from their precious turf areas. The norm where Maestro and I live right now, the norm is right out of the post-World War II era of landscaping. Everybody has massive lawns. And then they have their proverbial foundation plantings, and they have a tree here and there, and that is freaking it. And is there anything wrong with that? No, of course not. It's better than having a junkyard, which we have one about 2 miles away, 3 miles away, where they just, whatever they drag home, they just throw in the front yard. Yep, I guess you could call that a style of landscaping, but God, it's hideous to look at. In any case, what we have is people who have tens upon tens of thousands of square feet of lawn, even some people who have acres of lawn. They love it and enjoy the work it takes to maintain it or have the resources to have somebody come in and take care of it for them. It's just the norm. However, in many cases, these large lawn areas are predominantly watered by Mother Nature. There is very, very, very few irrigation systems where I live. Probably if I took a rock and threw it in a 5-mile circle around Brook and Pond, I would not find anybody who has an irrigation system. Maybe a drip system for a vegetable garden, and that's about it. But can you imagine these folks, if Mother Nature's heavens did not open up on a somewhat regular basis, can you imagine the cost if they were on a municipal water system or running a well, how much it would cost every month to water a 2-acre lawn and keep it up? Now, granted, the environment is a little different back here in the Northeast as it is, say, in Central Valley of California, Southern California, Arizona, Nevada, all the western and southwestern states. Much different. I get it. I totally get it. But the whole purpose of this podcast is to get you to think, are you in the arena of, man, I wish I didn't have to go out and mow the damn lawn every Saturday? Are you in a point in your life where you want to pare down the amount of yard maintenance that you want to have to maintain because maybe you're retiring at the middle of this year and you want to travel and you don't want to have a weekly service coming into your yard when you're not there every week and having that cost associated with it? Are you a person that wants to have something just a little different? Something that's not just a green carpet out there? I lost track decades ago on the number of people that said, oh, hey, Matt, don't forget to give us a little bit of lawn area somewhere so the dog has some place to go. And I'd always stand there and I would just be kind of gobsmacked. You want a lawn area just so your dog has a place to poop and pee? It's going to kill the lawn. It's going to ruin the lawn. Oh, I know, but that's the only place that, Fifi goes. Okay, I don't have to live there. So when we talk about lawnless landscapes, we're talking about a drastic, hard left turn at the intersection and going towards a style of landscape that we'll talk about a little later in the show, has a little higher uptick cost-wise initially, but then drastically falls off once established as far as maintenance times and maintenance costs. For you to get into the arena where you want to take another path, maybe reduce that maintenance time, certainly reduce the water bill every month if you are on such a system, and the amount of consumption that the landscape takes in. God, I can remember yards that I have had in my lifetime where, I was watering 3 and 4 times a week to maintain, and I'd have a water bill of a couple $100 a month. I can remember one lady, Laura, up in a town right next to where I used to work, that had $600 a month in a water bill. And she hired me to change the whole, we went totally lawnless, front yard, backyard, totally lawnless. And we took her $600 bill and she sent me a copy of it a couple months later after we had finished. And there was still a relatively new landscape. So she was having to kind of water just, a little extra. She went from $600 a month down to $75. And that included her household use too, not just her landscape use, but it was drip irrigation front and back, nothing but container plantings, shrubs, a few ground covers, some citrus, a big water feature, and that was it. And she was retiring. She was going to go travel the globe for a while, and she didn't want anything to interrupt with that. And then I got her onto a maintenance schedule where I saw her yard about 4 times a year, and I would make sure that everything was running and working, and I would fertilize here and there as I saw fit. And she was a pick and a poke, man. She loved it. She absolutely loved the change. She went 180 degrees different than what she had. And she was a very happy lady. Lawnless landscapes in many parts of this country, the U.S., and I'm sure other drought-prone areas of the world, the lawnless landscape is becoming the norm rather than the exception. Many times municipalities actually, where I was in California, the state of California, they actually had and I think I'm going to get the acronym wrong, but I think it was the WUCOL or WUCOL, WUCOL. It was a program where the state actually rewarded, cash rewarded people who converted their thirsty lawn landscapes to lawnless, as long as you had at least 80% of the plant material from their drought-tolerant list used in the landscape. And I actually did one of those in Oakdale, California. Actually put in a new front yard for a gentleman, a dentist, and he went off of the WUCOL list, and it was really successful and looked really good. Boulders and plant material and dry creek bed drainages from downspouts, and it turned out really slick, and he was very, very happy with it. So it's something that is a challenge for some and very easy for others. And with the lawnless landscapes, it doesn't mean that you don't have to be without the green carpet of one kind or another. You can still use all sorts of ground cover lawn alternatives to satisfy the lawn aspect if you so desire. As a matter of fact, if you do have a Fifi and Fifi needs to go, you can do ground covers instead of lawn, or if you have to, you can do artificial lawn. But many aspects of ground covers are so self-correcting and regenerating that you won't have those big yellow spots everywhere that Fifi leaves behind. So ground cover alternatives, which I go into quite a bit in that video. I show you a lot of different ground covers that are easy to install, and you have to go through the same process as doing lawnless, except maybe part of the lawnless landscape is a flat green area that you could still put a lawn chair out there and sit on it. It's not any different than a grass. Let's change directions for just a second and let's address new landscape installs, and then we'll talk about conversions to lawnless at the end here. For most homeowners, the biggest challenge, whether it be a conversion or a brand new install, will be the design and layout. Traditional lawn landscapes are fairly straightforward. They really are. I mean, it's grass almost everywhere with the proverbial tree here and there, front and back, and then foundation plantings and a patio and a walkway and a driveway. Done. Not bad and very functional, just a little weak in the creativity department. And chances are you'll look like everybody else in the neighborhood, which for some people, that's all they want. And it's not a bad thing, but there are alternatives. When you have a challenge, maybe you're not designer inclined, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But seeking out a landscape designer like myself is really a good investment. And what you're buying is not just a nice planned layout for the lawnless landscape, but you can be alleviating days of struggle and stress with what plant where syndrome. What's going to look good? What do I need to put in the back versus what do I need to put in the front? How do I intertwine these things so they look good at least 3 seasons a year, etc. Once that design, or like I like to refer to it as the landscape roadmap, is in your hands and in place, you can get it done a lot easier, a lot less stressful when you're doing it yourself, or if you take that design and hire it out and estimate it out to a professional or professionals. From the designing aspect, I would say what I used to do most for folks is I scaled the plant material and their taste to the size of the landscape itself. It does not make any sense to use large structure type of plants if you have a dinky yard. I'll give you an example. There was a job that I did in a neighboring town on a very busy street that had a dinky front yard and a little larger backyard. It was post WW2 type of yard, and there had not been anything done to this thing for decades. My job was to go in there and design it up and install it so that it was functional, and 5 and 10 years from now, it wasn't going to be a jungle. So I used plant material that I knew was not going to get very big. And I knew that it was a part sun, part shade type of plant material because we were under a massive sycamore tree. And it wasn't going to be so maintenance heavy, especially in the fall when that sycamore dropped or their little seed balls dropped, that they couldn't go out and clean it up relatively easily. And we took a struggling front yard that had weak, wispy remnants of an old lawn, took it all out, cleaned it all up, and installed something to the point where we actually had a little neighborhood reward or award that was given to them for the most improved yard in the neighborhood. So if you approach it from the aspect of plant size and plant numbers according to the size that you're going to redo, you will be yards and yards ahead of everyone else. And that's where you have to incorporate either a professional designer or taking a photo and maybe scale drawing to a local reputable nursery that might have a designer on staff and say, hey, I need your help. And if you help me out, I'll buy your plants here. and take that huge, steep learning curve, that knowledge curve that maybe you might struggle with, and delegate it to someone who that's their business. It's just another Thursday, no big deal. So let's talk about conversion of the high maintenance yard that you've had for 20 years. And it's time for a change, both in the landscape and maybe in your life itself. Maybe you're looking to scale it back a little bit. Maybe you want something different to look at, or maybe your lifestyle is going to change from the 5-6 days a week, 9 to 5 thing, and you're retiring and you want to do something else. Or, you're two young professionals and you don't know diddly about landscapes and mowers and everything else that goes along with it, and you need to concentrate on a career rather than on a lawn. This is for you. If this applies to you and you're serious about converting to a lawnless landscape, here are some steps that you might want to consider. Number one, if you already have a lawn, you're going to need to kill it in one form or another. Holy cow, can I open up a Pandora's box if I talk to you about how to kill a lawn? I have taken those shotgun rounds to the chest dozens of times on this channel. So I'm going to just kind of skirt the issue and say this. Choose to kill the lawn best how you want to have it done. You can do a solarization with black plastic, and bricks and smother it that way. Or you can use chemicals and spray it. The whole point is you need to kill it and kill it dead, not just brown. Even if you have a Kentucky bluegrass lawn, if you solarize that thing and you kill all the top growth, all the green, guarantee you the rhizomes of a bluegrass lawn down underneath the soil are still alive and they will regenerate, just like Bermuda grass, just like some of the warm season grasses. If you do not kill and remove all of the root system, you're going to have a regeneration of grass in an area that is now supposed to be grassless, lawnless. So make sure you do it right. But I'll leave how you do it up to you. I know how I used to do it. I couldn't sit around for 3 months waiting for a lawn to die. I had a damn schedule I had to attain to, and customers that were, tapping their finger going, when you going to be here? When you going to be here? When you going to be here? And contracts to honor. So I couldn't do that. I couldn't atone to the super environmental ways of doing stuff. I'll just leave it at that. So number 2, after or during the time that you're killing and removing the old turf, strongly suggest, if you do have an irrigation system, that you flag all of those sprinkler heads that are out there before you start taking a pick and a shovel or a sod cutter and start cutting things out. Not only that, but knowing where those sprinkler heads are going to play a pivotal role when you convert that lawn sprinkler system to a drip system. And if you do have an irrigation system and you're going to convert it, you're going to be using things like 1/2-inch threaded caps, filters, pressure reducers, maybe a valve box or 2, depending on the size of what you're dealing with here. And you're going to be capping all of your existing system, except for 1 or 2 of those, which are now going to be serving your drip system. If you just follow the design or the planting plan that you've paid for or you've come up with on your own, and you don't forget to incorporate all the elements that design or plan has in the step process that I generally lay out in the 15-step DIY landscape project checklist that I offer, it makes the job so much easier. And when you get to the planting part, step number 5, you amend the soil where you're going to be planting. Maybe it's just single holes for plants, or maybe it's an area for plants and ground cover. Where you're going to do the ground cover, you're going to prepare that soil pretty much like you are going to be doing a new lawn. It makes it a lot easier because if you're planting hundreds of plugs or ground cover sprigs, you don't want to have to dig that many holes Maybe you want to come in with a rototiller and rototill it in maybe 3 to 4 inches and then grade it all out after you've used your soil amendment and your starter fertilizers in there. Then you can come back in and plant all your new ground cover and then finish off the plant material and the trees and the mulch, the boulders, the lighting, your drip system, whatever you have. And then 6, you want to rake that whole area off, clean it all up, get it down to where you don't have clumps and clods of dirt and whatever left over. And this is where you come in and you apply your top dressings, whether that be an organic top dressing like bark and mulch, or if you're going into non-organic stuffs like gravels over fabric, whatever you decide. Whether you're doing an initial landscape or you're doing a conversion, when everything is planted and top dressed, raked off, finished, my strongest suggestion is this: water by hand for the first 30 days, depending on the time of year. If you're doing this during the height of summer, chances are you may be out there a minimum of 4 times a week watering. You may be out there every day checking for that first 30 days, 30 to maybe 45 days. Drag a hose, carefully drag a hose, and water each plant and each sprig by hand. Don't rely on a drip irrigation system for a brand new yard. It may get it through, but it's not a very good insurance policy. Irrigation systems are for established landscapes, not brand new landscapes, especially lawnless landscapes. You have to check it, visually check it, and water by hand is your best insurance policy at getting it through that establishment period. Plain and simple. So to kind of wrap this up, let's talk about the pros and cons of a lawnless landscape. Let's talk about the cons first. The cons is you're probably going to have, because of the cost of the plant material, because of maybe a designer cost, it's just going to cost you more upfront. And I'm not talking tens of thousands. I'm talking maybe a few $100s, maybe $1,000 more upfront, because plant material is generally more expensive than grass seed or sod for the most part. And guys, that's about the only con that I can truly come up with. You may have, depending on what was there before, you may have weed regeneration that you're going to have to contend with. There's a couple approaches to that, and you can consider it a con if you want. Number 1, you can treat the entire area after you've planted everything with a granular pre-emergent. That will take care of a majority of most weeds that are going to come up. Just remember, once the pre-emergent is in place, you can't go scratching around the surface because you're going to break up that chemical barrier that causes a germinating weed seed to hit and die. But that's probably one of the cons, is you could have some weeds popping up. And once you eliminate those, then your maintenance scale drops off dramatically. Once the weeds are under control and your plant material gets established, I mean, you can literally go, depending on what you've put in, go from once a week down to 4 times a year or less, depending on what you've put in. So that's really about the only con or cons that I can come up with. So what are the pros? Well, I just covered one of them, the maintenance once established. Now, the places that I've put in, and Laura's place that I did years ago, I was able to take care of that front and backyard as a professional 4 times a year. And usually I could have got away with twice a year. But she wanted a little insurance policy, so we did it 4 times. I mean, once a quarter, spring, summer, fall, and winter. I mean, that's not bad, going from once a year mowing crappy, worn out lawn to 4 times a year and having a professional doing it. You've reduced your maintenance down to 0 in her case. Another thing, and this is going to be really big for some people who have very high municipal water costs, and that is the amount of water consumption once established. Holy cow. I mean, $600 a month down to $75. Wow. You know, that's a big pro in a lot of people's books. Now, another thing that most people don't think about, but it is really true, and that is the visual interest that comes from a lawnless landscape. You just don't have green boxwood, a flowering cherry, and grass. There's a lot more to the landscape now than that. Where your shady areas are, you could have hostas and hydrangeas and azaleas and rhododendrons and ferns and other type of shady, part sun type of guys. You can have all kinds of plant material out in the sunny areas that some stay low, some bear fruit, some give you some things back when they come into season that you can actually eat and enjoy inside. Certainly a lot more color as part of that visual interest, because many times the plants that you will use will have a blooming season, and you can plan and design plant material in there where your blooming season extends. The other thing is you can always add to the landscape. You can add perennials to it. You can add annuals to it. You can use container color. You can use visual art and interest and whimsy that you can put out there as far as obelisks and plant pyramids and fence decor. You can do a lot of other things. And speaking of other things, once you get a lawnless landscape in there and established, you will find that you have a lot more time for other things. You don't have to worry about lawn moth and lawn grubs anymore. You don't have to worry about the sprinkler timers, making sure that they're always working and adjusting them all the time. Most of the time, once these plants get established and they have an irrigation system on a drip, shoot, there are timers out there now that pull local weather data off a Wi-Fi system and the internet to say, hey, tomorrow is going to be in the 50s with a ½ inch of rain. I don't have to water Matt's yard. No, we'll take a day off. Or the opposite. You know, it's 65 degrees today, but it's going to be 85 tomorrow. We're going to make sure that we water tomorrow, and the timer is automatically going to bump it up a couple minutes to make sure there's some extra water in the soil so plants don't get shell-shocked and dry out. Kind of neat. Technology actually paying us back. You know, I've been involved in dozens and dozens of these lawnless landscape approaches to very great satisfaction to my customers and profit to me. You know, if it wasn't for droughts back in the first part of this century, me and many other landscapers would have just folded the doors. It kept me open. It kept me open in a big, big way. So landscape conversions back then were my bread and butter, and it can be yours as well. So let's talk about the plants and the actual ground covers. Now, plants are really a hard one to discuss because I don't know where you live. And the easiest thing that I can suggest to you is get yourself a cup of joe and go to your nursery and look at the plants that are in the area. That is going to be your biggest clue as to what grows in your area. You can do all the internet checks you want. But for me, if I didn't know what I know, I would pick up a phone and make some appointments with a landscape designer and have them come in. That's just the way I would do it. At my age right now, or even 20 years younger, yep, I'd bring a designer in. Take that off my shoulders, and then I'll put in what you design up. So one way is that you can approach the plant thing is you can go to the YouTube channel. Check out the hundreds of plants of the week that I have done for you. Types of plants that I talk up and talk down in some cases, where they live and what their best uses are and what their care level is. Something you might want to learn there. Now, as far as the ground covers or the lawn alternative, again, this is not for acres of lawn replacement or lawn alternative. This is for square feet. You know, if I'm talking to you and you want to convert your 2-acre lawn to lawnless, you're going to have to bring a designer in because they will be able to allocate wide and vast swaths of mass plantings that will make it look very nice and probably more useful than just ornamental. But as far as the ground covers go, consider these, and you can find these at the local nursery during the growing seasons without any problem. Think about various sedums Angelina, Dragon Sedum. Think about Ruchia, especially the dwarf Ruchia. Very big out west now as far as a lawn alternative, and a very fast establishing ground cover that you can even mow if you want to 4 times a year to keep it nice and thick and fresh. Think about the Emerald Carpet Manzanita, Blue Star Creeper or Isotoma, the various mosses that are out there, Creeping Thyme, Veronica, Potentilla, dwarf prostrate type of junipers, and going back, dwarf ornamental grasses. Think about Elijah Blue Festuca and dwarf mondo grass, trailing gazania, and dichondra. Those are just some that I came up with. You know, everybody has a sliding scale on how much time and money they want to initially invest in their landscape, and also the ongoing costs associated with maintenance and upkeep. Where you fall on that scale, only you can answer that question. You know, as I speak to you today, I've already been at the design table for Brook and Pond here. I have a massive 12,000 square foot lawn out front. And it's in soil where the lawn kind of struggles. It really does. And I'm in the midst of designing it up and hopefully reducing that 12,000 square foot lawn down to probably under 5,000 square feet. There's some places like where the septic tank and the leach field is, I kind of have to leave as lawn, and I'm not going to touch that part. But the other parts, trees, shrubs, blueberries, that kind of stuff, yeah, that's on the drawing board right now. Hey, that's what I have for you. Lawnless alternatives, a way to really scale back the maintenance and the water use for your landscape. If you have any questions or you have any need for consultation, I invite you to go over to youryardcoach.com and check out some of the products and services that we offer there. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised on the inexpensive investment that you would make that could answer a whole lot of questions before you ever even get started on a project. Guys, as always, to your landscape success, I appreciate your time. If you're with me now, I invite you to go over to the visual part of the channel over on YouTube and check me out. If you have questions, drop them in the comments. I will see you guys next week, usually Fridays, and we're back in a full-time rotation after taking the holidays off. I'm going to go out and take care of some snow management for the 3rd time this week already, and dreaming about warmer and longer days in the future. As always, to your landscape success, I'll see you guys. Bye for now.